Well, hi and welcome. Today I am going to share with you making one of my favorite soups, which is an Italian creamy Zuppa Toscana soup. You're gonna love this. It's super easy, and the whole reason why I'm sharing this one with you today is because I've already showed you on other videos. If you haven't seen them, go check them out, how I make bags of what I call soup veggies. So I have my frozen kohlrabi here that's all cubed up that I just had been freezing all summer long, and I have another bag of my yellow squash and zucchini that's all cubed up. So all summer I am just collecting these in baggies so that I can, now when fall is here and all through the winter, make wonderful soups. Super easy. Half my ingredients is already going to be ready. You can do that with onions, carrots, any extra veggies that you have. I would just make what I call soup veggie bags. So the other ingredient that we have is kale, because this soup, Zuppa Toscana soup, means creamy sausage and kale soup. So this is kale. I have blue kale here. And I'm just going to show you quickly, in case you're like, blue kale, I don't know what to do with it, I haven't ever used it. And you can use spinach as well. I like to use kale because it's a little bit firmer, so it doesn't just disintegrate so quickly like spinach does in a soup. But the stem sometimes is a little tough. So I wash it, and then, because I already washed mine, I just pull the leaves off like so, down that stem. You can see it just pulls. And then sometimes I will just snip this up with the scissors, or once I have them all pulled off like so, and if I have a little stem in there, I don't worry about that either, but literally this is all I do. And I don't really know how many leaves there are right here, not a whole lot, maybe 3 or 4 big leaves, maybe only 3. I would just take this and I would just use my chef knife and chop it all up, so I have a nice cereal bowl. Now I gotta tell you a funny thing, because I hardly ever measure, you guys. I am just a person who, a handful of this, a handful of that, but today I am literally gonna measure my handfuls so that you really know how much I'm using. And I did actually measure this out. So in my mind, I always think, oh, about a cereal bowl of kale, about a cereal bowl of onion, but this is a 2-cup measure. So it's not packed 2-cup measure, it's just a loose 2-cup measure, but pretty much a 2-cup measure, okay? So let's go, and I'm gonna grab my pan, we're gonna cook up the sausage, and let's make this soup up. Okay, so first I just brown up my sausage just like this, and I actually love this handy dandy little tool. And then I will drain it, and I will set it aside. And I'll use the same pan to add my broth to. Okay, so now my sausage is cooked, and I'm gonna set it aside, like I said, in a bowl, separately aside in a separate bowl. I have my nice pan. We're gonna use the same pan. There's no need to wash this at all. I'm gonna get that thing on the burner, and the first thing I want to do is I want to get my broth in here, okay? So it takes 6 to 7 cups of broth. I'm gonna use 6, and the reason is because I like my soup a little thicker, and I don't like to add thickening to it if I don't have to. I don't like to add all kinds of extra cheese. I mean, we like cheesy soups and all that, but I've learned if you like your soup thicker and you don't want to add thickening, just don't use as much broth as they say. So that was 6 cups right there, because that was a 2-cup measure. I thought I was gonna need more, but I don't need that second one. So we're gonna get our broth hot, and the next thing that goes in with my broth is my garlic, which I forgot to bring here, so let me grab that a minute. Okay, so my garlic, yes, it is just this organic pre-minced. I don't always use this, but sometimes I do. We get in a hurry. I usually try to keep some on hand now and then, so that's what I'm gonna do today. 2 teaspoons of this. Yep, that's my teaspoon measure. About, or you could do more. I love it. Or I would say a couple cloves, 3, 4 cloves maybe, instead of the garlic. And I've got my burner on high. I'm just gonna bring this up to a nice boil, a good rolling boil. keep watching my recipe here, because I'm going to add my frozen soup veggies once it's boiling. Okay, so it's just about boiling, and this is typical. I get a little antsy. I'm like, okay, it's just about boiling. I'm gonna go ahead and throw my onion in here. So my onion is all cut up. Basically, what I use is one medium onion. I don't know, I call this a medium onion, not a large onion. I did dice it up just in my little chopper processor, but this is a packed 2-cup measure, okay? So I'm gonna put my onion in here, and sometimes I have frozen onion. Like I say, that's also gonna be a soup veggie bag of onion. I try to keep that on hand when I have spare onions. I just put them in the freezer. So now I've got my onion and my garlic in here. I want this nice and boiling really well when I go to add my frozen veggies in here, because I don't want it to cool down a ton. So I just want to get this good and bubbly, okay? Okay, so now it's nice and boiling, very good. This is exactly what I want. One other thing that I do, especially when I'm using store-bought broth, which is what I was using today, I didn't have canned broth. I usually take about a spoon of this, which I just remembered. I'm gonna measure this for you guys. I think the tip of a spoon or so would be, yeah, it's probably gonna be, no, it's gonna be 2 teaspoons. So 2 teaspoons, and again, you can do this just like I would. Just take a little bit there. You don't have to measure this. We're not baking a cake, you guys. We're making soup. Now I'll tell you another little secret. Okay, this chicken paste is basically an organic chicken paste, better than bouillon, it's called. It might not have the perfect ingredients to meet every need, but it's pretty decent. I go with it when I need to add a little bit to make my soups just be a little bit richer, because my broth isn't quite as rich as I'd like it. And what I want to say about that is, so you see me, I put 2 teaspoons in. I'm going to taste this at the end, and if it's not quite rich enough, I'm either going to start adding more seasonings, or I'm going to add another little teaspoon of this, okay? Even at that point when it's all done, okay? Don't feel bad about that. Okay, so now is our soup veggies. It's good and boiling, and so typically, again, I would grab a couple handfuls, but I'm going to use my 1-cup scooper here, and we're going to put in at least 2 cups of kohlrabi. That's what this is, chopped kohlrabi that I diced up and just froze. And this is instead of my potato. That's how you can get away from potato. Your family will not even know that potato isn't in here. My family can never tell. You could add potato, or you could do part potato, part kohlrabi, or you could even do cow flour. I've done that, and that works great. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of my zucchini and yellow squash, and I need 2 cups of this. I need 1 more cup in there, and I need 1 more cup of this. So now we've used 3 cups of the kohlrabi and 2 of the zucchini. I told you, this is just how I do it. And I'm looking in here. Okay, so I look at this and I want to see just a little bit of zucchini and yellow squash, and I want to see quite a bit more kohlrabi. So that's what I see. I still have quite a bit of broth yet in there, but I can see it's nice and full of vegetables. By the time I add my kale in and my sausage, which we will do that with the cream very last, we're gonna bring this to a boil now that we have our veggies in here. And we're just gonna kind of simmer this for, I don't know, about 10, 15 minutes, get it good and bubbly, bring it back up to a boil, because, you know, when you put the frozen veggies in, it cools down for a minute. And then we'll season it and we'll add the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so I do put a lid on when I put those veggies in there, just again to help it bring up to that boil a little bit quicker and to kind of get those veggies cooked. And they're looking just a little bit soft. They're feeling a little bit soft and cooked. Kohlrabi is kind of hard, so, you know, it's firm like a potato and tastes very plain like a potato. Something in between a potato and maybe a slight, very mild cow flour, I guess, I don't know. So now I'm gonna start adding in the rest of my ingredients, and then we're gonna season it. So my sausage, I'm gonna put that in there. This is 1 pound of sausage. I'll have the recipe for you below. My kale, which remember I measured out, and it was a 2-cup measure, a little bit on the light side, okay, not packed. I just stir my sausage and my kale in, and we do want to just I just have it on high. I just want to keep this thing bubbling and simmering. This kale is gonna just steam right down quickly, but see how lovely this is looking. It's pretty thick, pretty rich with a lot of, meat and veggies. So if you wanted to add that extra cup of broth, you definitely can. But next we're gonna add in, kind of last, is our 1 cup of cream. And this is just good, true, heavy, organic cream. Whoops, I got a little onion skin right there. Sometimes you see something like that, or a piece that's too big, and just take it out. Okay, now I'm just gonna start seasoning it, and I'm gonna first start, actually just shaking things in. If you have not seen my Shake on the Goodness course, you gotta check it out. You're gonna love that course. It is all about shaking in goodness, seasonings and spices, which ones, why, and how beneficial they are. So if I had to guess, I would say about 1/8 or 1/4 of a teaspoon of each one of these seasonings, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of kelp. That's one of my favorites, actually, maybe a lot of kelp, because I really love kelp. Kelp is super good for us, has hardly no flavor at all. And we want our soup to have lots of flavor, and we want the health. A little bit of turmeric, that often gives it a golden color if you're not used to it. You start out with a little, otherwise use more. And then I have my mom's seasoning salt here. This is actually another, this seasoning salt recipe is actually, it's a little stuck, is actually on my course also. The only place online where this recipe is shared with the public is on that course. So if you want to know how to make your own seasoning salt that's super healthy and good for you, check that course out. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in this, just a little bit. I'm going to taste it first before I get too crazy. And of course, this sausage Italian soup is great to have some black pepper in there. This is not at all a spicy soup. I could easily have doubled the seasonings that I put in here. And I will taste it to see how it tastes, because I totally go by taste. I know some of you might like to measure it all out, and you could. You could measure 1/8 teaspoon or 1/4 teaspoon of each one and see how you like it. Nutmeg, believe it or not, is another spice that's actually really good to add into this soup. Now, you can see how thick, or maybe you'd say how thin it is, either one. We're good with this because I don't like to thicken my soups a lot. I really try not to add the extra starch. But if you want it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit creamier, let's say you're gonna serve it, and if I was gonna serve this one, I would want it a little bit creamier. There is another secret ingredient, and it's arrowroot powder. You can use that instead of starch. Let's see, I got about 1/2 cup of water there, I would guess. And I'm going to, because I want you to see how this will be if I thicken it. And actually, hold on, let me just see. Yeah, because this looks really quite good, but I want you to just see. If I was gonna thicken it, or I was accustomed to soups that were thicker, I would do just like so. I'd use 1 tablespoon. If you use too much arrowroot powder, it starts to change the consistency, and I don't like it just thickened like crazy with arrowroot powder. And actually, I have a little too much here, so I'd probably do only 1/3 cup of water or 1/4 cup. So I'm gonna dump a little bit out, and I'm going to put a little bit more arrowroot powder in here, another 1/2 tablespoon. So let's say 1/3 cup of water, and I now have 1.5 tablespoons of arrowroot powder. Okay, and I'm going to just pour this in here, and I'm just gonna let this thicken it. Or if you don't want to do arrowroot powder, see how that just creamed it right up, a little bit more like your traditional store or restaurant soup you might be accustomed to, but you didn't have to add cornstarch. You could add cornstarch, you could add flour, or whatever you would use to thicken it. But if you're trying to stay away from the flour, try the arrowroot powder. Okay, so now at this point, you guys, I am going to turn it down just a little bit. I want to keep it simmering, but I don't want to bubble it over the top. It's going to give a little taste. Okay, this is hot, so I'm going to let it cool just a little bit here. We just want to see how our saltiness and how the creaminess is. So I think the seasoning is about perfect. If anything, I might add just a little bit more of the mom's seasoning salt. That's what we call it around here because it's my seasoning salt I've been making for years. Give a little bit more in there. And this is perfect. My kohlrabi is tender. My kale could have just another minute more, but it's going to just sit here again before I serve it. This is a delicious fall creamy soup. Let me grab a bowl and serve you some out. Okay, so then I would just serve this up. And this is just a wonderful soup for fall and for winter. This is truly one of my family's favorite. And so I hope that you will enjoy this Italian Zuppa Toscano creamy sausage soup. And I'll see you in the next video.